What is up, YouTube? I am Chapik, and last weekend Ted Thompson was inducted into the Packers Hall of Fame, so I wanted to honor the man, the myth, the legend by creating a top 10 career-defining decisions by Sir Ted Thompson. I got my dad hat on. I got my dad's shirt on. So cheers to you, Ted Thompson. It's time to pour ourselves another Packers podcast. You get it? I said cheers instead of here's because normally I take a sip before. I got dad jokes too. Welcome to episode 5 of my weekly podcast. If you are a repeat offender or one of the 33 subscribers I've had since my last video, I want to thank you specifically for joining. Now, if you are a first-time viewer of this clip, you just stumbled across YouTube, I appreciate you taking the time to watch this. If you like what I'm doing, if you like what I'm about to, display for you, I encourage you to hit that subscribe button. I spent the last couple of weeks talking about the draft. I think I did an overkill on the draft. Maybe I'll touch base on a little bit more on it down the road. But I encourage you to leave some comments, subscribe, like the video, and I will be posting, again, weekly videos every Friday. So welcome aboard, and let's get started. So the main reason that I wanted to do a top 10 breakdown of Ted Thompson's career-defining decisions was because for the last decade or so, over a decade, in fact, he has been kind of the guy that has shaped this Packers organization that I have grown to love. I believe many of you have grown to love. Some controversial decisions that he's made over the years, a lot of really good draft picks that I will definitely miss out on. So as I'm creating this list and as you're diving into it, don't freak out too much about if I don't have that particular player you like on the list. It's just my own opinion. I don't expect you to follow along 100%, but this is what I believe is some of his top 10 decisions moving forward. So for those of you that don't know, back in 1992, Thompson was hired by Ron Wolf as a scout for the Green Bay Packers and spent the next 7 seasons with the team through the 1999 season. In that time span, the Packers advanced to the playoffs 6 times, had 2 Super Bowl appearances, of course, and obviously we had that Super Bowl victory in Super Bowl 31. For those of you that don't know, former Packers head coach and then GM Mike Holmgren actually recruited Thompson to Seattle, where he was named the vice president of football operations and also headed the Seattle Seahawks scouting team. It wasn't actually until 2005 when Thompson returned to Green Bay. He replaced then GM Mike Sherman as the Packers GM at the time, thus beginning the Ted Thompson era. Now, before we get started, I quickly want to touch upon a statement released by Ted Thompson this past Wednesday morning in regards to some of his health concerns. So for those of you that have followed the Packers as passionately as I have, you may have noticed that Ted kind of seemed like a little bit of a wanderer later on in his career before Brian Gutekunst took the role of GM. And I'm just going to read off this statement to you. So late in the 2017 season, Mark Murphy and I had a conversation about my health and future with the Packers. At that time, we mutually agreed that it was in my best interest of myself and the organization to step away from my role as general manager. In consultation with team physician Dr. John Gary, I began a complete health evaluation that has included second opinions over the last year from the Medical College of Wisconsin, the Mayo Clinic, and the UT Southwestern Medical Center. I have been diagnosed with an autonomic disorder. I feel that it's important to mention that based on the test results and opinions of medical specialists, they feel that I do not fit the profile of someone suffering from CTE. I want to thank Dr. Gary, the medical professionals, the Green Bay Packers, and my family for all they have done and continue to do for me. It was a tremendous honor to be inducted into the Packers Hall of Fame this past weekend. The Green Bay community and the fans of the Packers have always been and will continue to be very special to me. It is my hope and belief that I will be able to overcome this disorder. Finally, I'd like to ask that you respect the privacy of myself and my family as we move forward. Now, I did a little bit of research on what an autonomic disorder means and some of the side effects associated to it. So the autonomic nervous system regulates the functions of your internal organs, things like your heart and stomach, and controls the smooth and cardiac muscles and your glands. Hence the name. The autonomic system involuntarily makes fine-tuned adjustments to your body based on what signals your central nervous system is picking up. So things like changing of the body temperature, sending extra blood to a particular area, slowing the heartbeat, and tweaking stomach secretions. So I don't know the full extent of what Ted Thompson is going through or as far as how severe his diagnosis is, but at the very least, this video is in honor of you, everything that you have done to shape the Packers organization. So once again, cheers to you, Ted Thompson. It's time to get started with number 10. So at number 10, I have the wonderful draft pick of Randall Cobb back in 2011. Number 64th overall pick in the second round. He was actually the first player born in the 1990s to play in the NFL. So over his 8-year career with the Green Bay Packers, he started in 83 games, 527 receptions, a whopping 6,120 yards, and had 46 touchdowns. First game, I recall very fondly. It was actually the home opener against the New Orleans Saints. I went there with my brother, my mom, and dad. We had just come off of that Super Bowl victory. This guy recorded his first NFL touchdown with a 32-yard touchdown reception from Aaron Rodgers. And then he had that very memorable 108-yard kick return right at the beginning of that third quarter. His most infamous season was back in 2014, where he recorded 91 reception, had over almost 1,300 yards, and had 12 touchdowns. That was also the year that he got that major contract. Him and Jordy Nelson both signed contracts to stay at the Packers for 4 years. Reflecting on Randall's career, he's obviously been a great option, a great receiver for the Packers. He struggled with injuries a little bit later in his career. He's going to be greatly missed. For those of you that are unaware, he did sign a 1-year, $5 million contract with the Dallas Cowboys. But I absolutely love Randall Cobb. My dad has struggled purchasing jerseys over the years. He had a Randall Cobb jersey that he purchased about 2-3 years ago. He just replaced that with a Davante Adams jersey last season. But he was always the guy that you could count on right across the middle to catch that bullet of a pass and go 70 yards for a touchdown, just like he did in Week 1 against the Bears last season. Absolutely a phenomenal wide receiver. He's going to be greatly missed. And he is number 10 on my career-defining decisions by Ted Thompson. At number 9, I decided to shake things up a little bit, and probably not the most popular opinion out there, but it is actually the trade for Ryan Grant back in 2007. So back in September 1st of 2007, the Packers traded away a future 6th-round draft pick to the Giants for Sir Ryan Grant. This is the one and only trade that I have on my top 10 list, and I think this was a crucial one in regards to looking at Ryan Grant's career in the season. If you recall, the Packers hadn't had a dominant running back at that position since Amon Green had retired or left the team in 2005. And actually, Grant wasn't entirely sure that he was going to be able to play heading into that Packers or before that Packers trade, because he was in a nightclub in 2006. Someone bumped into him. His left arm went through a champagne glass. He severed arteries, tendons, a bunch of nerve endings. Doctors didn't think that he'd be able to have any feeling in that left arm, so I think that's why the Packers were able to get him at a relatively great steal. But from 2007 to 2009, he started in 37 games. He rushed for 3,400 yards, had 23 touchdowns. You're going to see a lot of highlights from the Seattle game in this clip, because that was kind of one of his breakthrough performances. Yes, he fumbled twice in the first 4 minutes, kind of put the Packers in the hole. They were down 14-0. But then he went on to rush for 201 yards. He had 3 touchdowns. There's not a ton of footage, quite frankly, of Ryan Grant outside of that game. I think I dug up a couple clips here and there. And an interesting thing with Ryan Grant is that he played with Brett Favre in the very late stages of his career in Green Bay, and he got to play with Aaron Rodgers as well. I view this pick at number 9 as a value trade more than anything. You were able to find a running back that was able to contribute to the team, be kind of the guy up until really James Starks emerged in that Super Bowl season. And he had a solid career with Green Bay, and that's exactly why I put him at number 9 on the top 10 list. Going into number 8, we have ourselves Davante Adams at wide receiver. I think we are all familiar with this. This is actually one of only 2 Packer players on this list that are still current and active players on the roster. So he was selected number 53 overall, second round of the 2014 draft, and he was actually the 9th wide receiver drafted in that round. So if we look at the list, Sammy Watkins, Mike Evans, Odell Beckham, Brandon Cooks, all really good picks. These were actually the selections before the Packers had the pick at 21, where they took Clinton Dix. And then afterwards, you had Kelvin Benjamin, Marquise Lee, Jordan Matthews, Paul Richardson. There was a lot of talent apparently at wide receiver back in 2014, and of course we took Davante Adams in the second round. Since 2014, he has started in 72 games, has 376 receptions, over 4,500 yards, 43 touchdowns, and quite frankly, this guy is still getting better. With Jordy Nelson no longer being that number 1 target on the team, Davante Adams truly stepped up, and actually, in a sad turn of events, he was 1 reception short of breaking Sterling Sharp's record of 112 receptions set in 1993, and he is 134 yards short of breaking Jordy Nelson's record of 1,519 yards back in 2014. When I originally made this list, I didn't have Davante Adams on my top 10 list. I knew that would create a ton of uproar among the Packers community. The more I think about this pick, the more obvious it is to me that Davante Adams deserves to be on this list. His first couple seasons is pretty much the only reason I dock him and don't put him any higher on the list, because he did struggle with drops. Going into, I think it was a sophomore season, I wasn't even sure that he was going to make the roster. Many of us, and don't pretend like you weren't one of them, were rooting for him to just be cut because he was known to drop the ball. And then all of a sudden, the light switched and he became automatic. He was the go-to guy. He catches everything. Absolutely love Davante Adams on the team. And with that, we go to pick number 7. So if Ryan Grant making the list didn't tick you off a little bit, I think that number 7 could potentially tick you off a little bit. So at number 7, I have tight end Jared Cook being signed back in the 2016 season. So I am a little bit biased with this selection. Again, this is my list. This is my show. I can kind of put these guys wherever I want, and that's what I appreciate about this show most of all. He signed a 1-year, $2.75 million contract. He was an absolute steal for the Packers to take in free agency. And he's one of the many rare free agent signings that Ted Thompson had throughout his career. So looking back at the signing of Jared Cook in 2016, this was really the beginning of that tight end carousel, which led to the absolute disaster of Marcellus Bennett, and all the drama that came with that once Rodgers got hurt and couldn't play anymore, and then eventually led to the huge signing of Jimmy Graham to the team last season, and which hopefully I think will lead to a lot of production coming into 2019. But I'm getting off point. If there is one downfall with Ted on this one, it's that they didn't re-sign Jared Cook to the team. Yeah, he didn't have the most jaw-dropping stats. He only played in 13 games, 48 receptions, 606 yards, 3 touchdowns. But if you remember, this was the run the table season that Jared Cook was a member of the Packers, and he wrote this amazing letter to Green Bay that I encourage you to Google if you get the chance, just stating how much he loved the community and playing for the team and all the opportunity that came to him with Green Bay and how he wanted to finish his career in Green Bay. Ted Thompson dropped the ball at not re-signing him. I don't mean to bash you, Ted Thompson. This is your top 10 list, but again, I think you might have missed the mark a little bit with Jared Cook. One thing to remember is that this was actually the beginning of the end when it came to the Mike McCarthy era too. It was back in 2016. You're 4-6. Aaron Rodgers says we're going to run the table. Packers hadn't figured it out, and I was on that. I kind of started that Mike McCarthy. Okay, I didn't start the Mike McCarthy campaign, but I was part of that Mike McCarthy campaign of let's get rid of the coach. Things need to change. This offense is getting stale. And once he developed chemistry with Aaron Rodgers, he made that tiptoe Michael Jackson catch for the history books to set up a game-winning field goal against Dallas in the NFC playoffs. I love Jared Cook. I wish he was still part of the team, but the only thing I can do at this point is place him on my top 10 list, and then we will move ourselves to number 6. Heading into number 6 on my top 10 list, things get a little bit more comfortable with Packer fans with the drafting of Clay Matthews back in 2009. Now remember, he was drafted 26th overall in the 2009 draft, and he was not actually the highest pick in that Packers draft. That award would go to B.J. Raji at number 9. He was in the first round as well, and I would have loved to include him in this list because he had that amazing pick 6 in the NFC Championship game against the Chicago Bears. He did his little boogie woogie on the sideline. I love B.J. Raji, but you retired too early, and unfortunately you didn't continue your career with the Packers. Looking back at Clay Matthews' career, of course, he made one of his biggest plays in Super Bowl 45 when he forced that fumble on Rashad Mendenhall on a second and short run play to start the fourth quarter. That completely was a shift of momentum, and at that point, the Packers were able to move forward and kind of seal that victory, giving them their Lombardi trophy and bringing it back to Green Bay. Throughout his 10 seasons with the Green Bay Packers, he started in 152 games, recorded 94.5 sacks, 401 tackles, and he actually had 6 interceptions as well to pad his stats. He made the NFL Top 100 list 7 straight years, so from 2011 to 2018, he was on that Top 100 list, 6 Pro Bowl appearances. Enough can't be said about Clay Matthews, and I think as we start to dive into the top 5 of this top 10 list, this is really where you're going to start to see difference makers that Ted had either drafted or brought into the team, or things that had completely shifted the course of the Packers organization throughout his tenure with Green Bay. I wish you good luck in Los Angeles with the Rams. I know you wanted to stay with Green Bay. I think some of those roughing the passer calls probably hurt your contention of, no, I'm just kidding. That wasn't roughing the passer. I think time had finally come for the Clay Matthews sunset to go down. It was a great run. I appreciate all 10 years that you spent in Green Bay. And with that, we move on to the top 5. And at number 5, I have...
Somebody told me today, man, this is my 250th game. Damn!
So after spending his first 8 seasons with the Oakland Raiders, Ted Thompson made one of his best free agent signings by signing Charles Woodson to the Green Bay Packers back in 2006. He signed a 7-year, $52 million contract, and this is a guy that won the Heisman Trophy back in 1997 with his junior season and became an absolute game changer for the Packers defense throughout that late 2000s, early 2010s. Through his 7 seasons with the Packers, and not including playoffs, he started 100 games, had 379 solo tackles, 38 interceptions, and 9 touchdowns. He had 4 Pro Bowl seasons with the Packers and was also named NFC Player of the Month 4 times as well. Back in 2009, he was actually named NFL AP Defensive Player of the Year when he had 9 interceptions and 3 touchdowns. Charles Woodson was an absolute game changer when it comes to free agent signings, and one of the few free agent signings that we look back on with Ted Thompson's career. He brought a leadership to the team that could not be duplicated by anyone else, because remember, we had a very young Aaron Rodgers who quite hadn't stepped into that role, and he was a motivating factor for everybody on the team. If there's any sadness when looking back at Charles Woodson's career at the Packers, it's that he broke his collarbone back in that Super Bowl 45, but he still managed to hoist the one and only Lombardi trophy throughout his infamous career with the green and gold, and that is absolutely an honor. Even after he left Green Bay, he was still making waves with his performance out in Oakland as he finished out his career. Charles Woodson, I appreciate everything you did for the team. I appreciate you giving 100%, all your heart and soul to the Green Bay Nation, and I want to honor you as well. Thank you so much. And with that, it's time for number 4. Appearing at number 4 on this top 10 list, we have none other than Jordy Nelson, who was drafted number 36 overall in the second round of the 2008 draft. Jordy is arguably one of the greatest receivers to ever play for the Packers. Throughout his 10 seasons with the Green Bay Packers, he played in 148 games. Don't forget that he missed the entire 2015 season when he tore his ACL against Pittsburgh in the preseason. Man, that's a lot of P's. So his stats could have been a little bit greater, but how can you argue with 604 receptions, 8,500 yards, 74 touchdowns? And in 2014, that was actually his standout season with the franchise when he broke that record of receiving yards with 1,519 receiving yards and passed Robert Brooks to be the single season record holder for receiving yards. Enough can't be said about Jordy Nelson and what he meant to the Green Bay Packers and to the success of Aaron Rodgers' career. He was always Mr. Dependable. He was the guy that you knew you could count on when it was a 4th and 4 and you needed one of those conversions for a first down, and Rodgers would always find a way to thread the needle, and Nelson would find a way to catch the ball in a remarkable fashion. Watching all of the highlights throughout his career in Green Bay, it's truly astonishing how he always found a way to get open and be on the same page with Aaron Rodgers. That's one of the many things that I am going to miss about Jordy Nelson. being a Green Bay Packer. Of course, after leaving Green Bay, Jordy Nelson spent a season out in Oakland, which seems to be a trend when it comes to Packers players leaving the organization, with Charles Woodson and Jared Cook. After one season, he got fed up of not having Aaron Rodgers throw him the ball, and is actually looking to have a one-day signing or a retirement. He wants to retire as a Green Bay Packer. I am still holding out for Jordy Nelson to come back and play one more season with the Packers and join in the Super Bowl run that is inevitable in this 2019 season. But until then, all we can do is say cheers to you, Jordy Nelson. My drink is getting lower, and now we find ourselves in the top 3. At number 3 of the list of Ted Thompson's top 10 career-defining decisions, we have the hiring of Mike McCarthy to the Green Bay Packers. So actually, a year after Thompson replaced Mike Sherman as general manager back in 2005, and after coming off of a 4-12 season, on January 12, 2006, Mike McCarthy was hired as the head coach of the Green Bay Packers. Similar to Ted Thompson, McCarthy actually spent some time with Green Bay prior to being hired in 2006 when he was the quarterbacks coach in the 1999 season. And that year, Brett Favre actually had his 4th best total yards of his career when he threw for 4,091 yards. And by the way, making a collage of Mike McCarthy clips that will keep you entertained is an absolute challenge. It's honestly quite creepy when you just have a guy with a headpiece on walking across the sideline. So from now on forward, I'm actually going to just use still photos as we talk about the rest of Mike McCarthy. So throughout his 13 seasons as the head coach of the Packers, he had a combined record of 125, 77, and 2. They had 6 NFC North championships, and of course, he coached the Packers to Super Bowl victory in Super Bowl 45. And similar to Ryan Grant, Mike McCarthy had the privilege of not only coaching Brett Favre through the later years of his career, but up until about 2 months ago, he was the one and only head coach that Aaron Rodgers ever knew. Say what you will about Mike McCarthy and obviously the frustrating end to his career in Green Bay, he was an absolute difference maker and someone that we could consistently have at that head coach position for over a decade, and that was something that we haven't had for a very long time in Green Bay. Now, putting Mike McCarthy on this list was an obvious decision for me. It was someone that I could put on the list that was not a drafted player, not a free agent signing. By hiring Mike McCarthy, Ted Thompson had his guy at head coach throughout the rest of his tenure as a GM. And honestly, if the Packers were able to figure out their offense even last season, we probably would have seen McCarthy going into this next 2019 season. But unfortunately, they just couldn't get it together at any point. Disregarding all of that, Mike McCarthy, I appreciate you as a head coach for the Green Bay Packers. You did many wonderful things. You were a cement block as far as consistency when it came to having that guy there to operate the team. Would the Packers have won more or less Super Bowls had you not been the head coach? That's completely unknown, but you were able to shape and mold Aaron Rodgers and help him develop into the quarterback that he is. And you did a lot of great things for the organization. I do appreciate you. I am glad that you are gone because I am super thrilled to have Matt LaFleur as the head coach. But I wish you the best in your future endeavors. I know that you're taking a season off from the NFL. And with that, we hit ourselves at number 2.
But go ahead and say it. The Packers select who?
At number 24, the Packers proudly step to the podium and take the successor to Brett Favre, Aaron Rodgers.
How in the world does Aaron Rodgers drop that far?
With the 24th selection in the 2005 NFL Draft, the Green Bay Packers select Aaron Rodgers, quarterback from California.
That's right. When Packer Nation felt like the last thing we needed was a quarterback, Ted Thompson goes and selects Aaron Rodgers with the 24th overall pick in the 2005 NFL Draft. So how crazy was Ted when he drafted Aaron Rodgers in 2005? They were just coming off of a 10-6 season. They finished first in the NFC North the past 3 seasons. The last thing that Green Bay needed was a quarterback. Now, I actually recall the first time that Rodgers actually played in a regular season game with Green Bay. It was a Thursday night football game. I went to my grandparents with my dad to watch the game. Packers were 10-1. The Cowboys were 10-1. The winner was going to take sole possession of first place in the NFC division. Favre ends up getting injured with his throwing arm, and Rodgers comes in. And at that point, my grandma and grandpa and dad were all just kind of losing their crap. Oh no, Favre is injured. The entire game is over. I don't know why my grandma's not Swedish, so completely ignore that soundbite right there. But Rodgers comes into the game. They're down 27-10. He leads 2 scoring drives. He throws his first career touchdown pass, brought the Packers actually within a field goal. Now, ultimately, they lost the game 37-27, but I knew at that point that Aaron Rodgers was the future of the team. I knew that they actually had a gem. They absolutely had a gem in Aaron Rodgers for their future. And the career stats, they absolutely speak for themselves. I mean, 173 starts, 3,938 completions, 47,402 yards, 374 touchdowns, and he actually has 30 rushing touchdowns to go in there. Arguably, Aaron Rodgers is the GOAT at the quarterback position when it comes to the greatest of all time. Yes, he needs to win a couple more Super Bowls. I think a couple more Super Bowls would definitely categorize him as the greatest of all time. But until then, Tom Brady, you can wear your crown. When Rodgers is in the game, you always have a chance. He is the king of Hail Marys. He is the king of escaping the pocket and making hairpin throws to his receivers. Without that drafting of Aaron Rodgers back in 2005, Brett Favre would have retired probably a little bit later, 2009, 2010. And then where would we have been at the quarterback position? Because he drafted him in 2005, and yes, they could have possibly drafted a star player at that position that wasn't a quarterback that could have helped them kind of go over the hump and win one more Super Bowl to finish Favre's career. Had he not drafted Aaron Rodgers, I probably would have never started this podcast, because the Packers would be the Cleveland Browns of the NFL. They would be at the bottom of the barrel. Yes, I would still be a diehard Packer fan, but there wouldn't be a whole lot else to be excited about. We might have gone through the quarterback carousel throughout the years and drafted God knows who at the quarterback position. But by him taking him in 2005, it cemented that future for the organization, for the Green Bay Packers to go on and be successful throughout the following 10 years. Winning Super Bowl 45 could arguably be the highlight of Aaron Rodgers' career, but I think one thing that we forget is that he is still in the prime of his career, and he has a lot to prove. He's come off of 2 mediocre seasons, which is a Jay Cutler season if you're anybody else. I think looking forward, I think Rodgers will net himself hopefully at least 1 more, if not 2 more Super Bowls. And you gotta go out and appreciate Ted Thompson for making that tough call when it comes to selecting Aaron Rodgers in the 2005 draft. And speaking of tough calls, I think number 1 should surprise nobody. So yes, the number 1 career-defining decision by Ted Thompson was when he stood his ground on the whole Brett Favre drama that unfolded in the 2008-2009 season. Hands down, there was no bigger impact that Ted Thompson had to the Packers organization than by choosing not to bring back Brett Favre to the Green Bay Packers. There was that very emotional retirement speech that he had. I remember everyone in Wisconsin was tuning in to watch his retirement speech. But then when he got that itch and that desire to play football again, the Packers really had to stand their ground on how they wanted to handle that entire situation. Now, when he got the opportunity to come back to Green Bay, he was told that he had to compete for that starting role against Aaron Rodgers. And if you recall, he was not on board with that. He had been the face of the franchise for close to 2 decades. He felt like he had the entitlement to be the starting quarterback. But at the same time, Ted Thompson knew what he had in Aaron Rodgers, and he felt like it was finally that time to turn a page and move on with the franchise down the road. Now, the decision not to bring back Brett Favre is exactly why I personally could never be a general manager in the NFL. I actually wrote a blog post last season back when Jordy Nelson got released by the Green Bay Packers about this topic, and I think it still rings true today as I look back at everything that unfolded in this Brett Favre drama. When you have to make those decisions as a general manager on what's the best interest of the team and what's the best interest of the franchise, and you have to completely break the hearts of millions of Packer fans, it's very similar to what Brian Gutekunst did last season when he cut Jordy Nelson, and it's reminiscent of what happened back in 2008 with the releasing or decision not to bring back Brett Favre. It should go without stating that Brett Favre will always be an absolute legend to all of us Packer fans and to the Green Bay franchise, but it was time to move on. It wasn't the easiest of departures. We got to see him wearing that lovely green Jets color, and then we obviously got to see him wear that purple People Eaters color in the later end of his career. But we also got to see him throw that interception in the NFC Championship game, and it all reminded us what was giving us so much heartache in Favre's last seasons as the Green Bay Packers was, regardless of the gunslinger that he was, regardless of the greatest accolades in the Super Bowl that he brought us in the 90s, he wasn't able to get us over that hump anymore, and he was known to kind of create those head-scratching, frustrating moments that we obviously got to see the Minnesota Viking fans enjoy, and then all of us Packer fans were able to say, see, I told you. So that concludes my first top 10 list for Pour Another Packers podcast. I plan on doing more of these down the road. I'm sure many of you at home do not agree with my top 10 list or where I place particular draft picks or players that Ted Thompson had an influence with on the Packers' last 10, 15 seasons. But I control the microphone, so I can make any damn list that I want to! But in all seriousness, I encourage you to comment down below what your top 10 list would be for Ted Thompson's decisions. I appreciate you watching the video. Hit the like button if you enjoyed the video. Go ahead and click that subscribe button. I think it's time for me to take off this dad hat. It's time for me to take off this dad shirt. Thank you for watching, and I will see you. Oh man, my beer's gone. Anyway, I will see you on the internet. Thanks for watching.